Croeso. Welcome back to Britain's Hidden History. Me, Ross Broadstock, on Sunday evening. Episode number 190. Wow, and it said would never last. Take it away, Arnie. Well, a little bit of a Russian theme tonight. Not get too bogged down in Russian history. More comparing some fabrications and fakers gone on there, okay? So we'll come on to that later. But the show's a bit different tonight. A lot more news and a lot more other items like the Comet and Roman forts and all sorts of stuff. World War II buildings. Richard Hall is a whole raft of updates and news this week. So get those first. Alright, so good evening all. Marshall, first online. Thank you, Marshall. Good to hear from you. Hugh Evans, good to see you. Hope you're feeling better. Hello, Pau. Johnny Nigma. Oh, the old face. Steve Frankham. Hey, haven't seen you for a while. Good to see you. Gary Taylor, wonderful. 8 stitches, Hugh Evans. Ow! Right, there we go. So he's feeling better now. Right, hello all. Sorry to hear about that, Hugh. Good to see you back on form. Right, who else we got online? Gavin Lloyd, evening all. Right, everyone. David Church. Like, give people a chance to log in because I can see the numbers are shooting up all the time. Britain versus Russia. Hopefully a mention of Tartaria. Yes, there is more than a mention of that. Yes, there is indeed. Yeah, Crimea. Yeah, I'm not getting into the more. Yeah, I just realised flag of Tartaria, similar to the Union Jack. No, not going that far into it. It's more about how the history's faked. There's Fomenko we're looking at. Going through Fomenko. It'd be awesome if I had Santos Bonacci. Yeah, I should get in touch with him. Oh dear, all that snow. Yay! Danny S, 306 years old. Thank you, Arnie B. That's fantastic. Thank you. Right, I see you guys get your 10 minutes before you get started. You got to get in there early now, Angela. Welcome aboard. Tony, hello, Tony. All right, yes, right, okay, so we got loads of stuff. So let's get cracking. Because, a little bit different this week because we've got quite a few newsy type things and updates and stuff like that. And, hang on a second. I just realised there's something I haven't done. Oh, talk amongst yourselves, they say. Hang on a second. It's slightly important, this is. Come on. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, so it's slightly misleading when I say Britain v Russia. It's more like how do people fake things rather than a war of them. Oh, right, hello. More. Uh-oh. Never work with children or animals, and a child has just given me an animal to hold. So there's Guido. You right, darling? The little hamster, Guido. You want to look around? Yeah, I think it's a little bit too much for him, perhaps. There we go, thank you. I don't know why. Thank you, anyway. Right, okay, let's have a look. So, it's been an incredibly busy week. And the first thing, very proud to announce, yay, 5,000 subscribers. So, thank you very much. All those people come back week after week. Spread the word, tell your friends, onwards and upwards. We've got a few things starting to do more on there, sort of spreading the word now. Now we've got loads of content and there's lots more to come, so that's good stuff. Thank you, very pleased with that. I'm amazed really. We've been going 119 episodes, only just over 2 years, isn't it, from more or less a standing start. So well done everyone, and keep spreading the word. That's good. Hang on, Leo, can you put the show on this computer, please? Oh yeah, right, yeah, my birthday. For those of you who don't know, my birthday is a few days ago. So thank you to Neil and Claire for hosting us. And Susie, we had a great time. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just had the photographs come out. That was excellent. And as you can see, my general policy, everyone asks about my age, I am 36 every September the 1st. And then 6 months later, March the 1st, I go back to being 35 again. It's a great way to do it. And there's my lovely cake. Ha ha. Thank you, Neil, for that one. Happy birthday, me. So there you go. Right, look at that. Well, exciting birthday week it was. So there is myself and Richard Hall up on the Garth Mountain, and we're making a film together, so look out for that. Hopefully, it'll be a while, I think, but hopefully not too long. And you can see, looking down from the Garth, we're up on the mounds, doing the whole thing, because one of the things to be part of the film is looking at this. So here's a little sneak preview. All those people screenshotting out there. It's not exactly right. It just needs a little bit of tweaking. But what I've done, for those of you not aware, the whole of South Wales, like a massive star map. And Orion, although we think Orion might have this might be additional to the whole star map, because this Orion seems to fit. It fits slightly differently. But anyway, let's not get into the details. Get all caught up in all that kind of stuff. There's a lot to go on tonight. What we do is just give you a rough idea. This is, you can see the M4. It's upside down just because the way it goes. I've done this as a clear. I've redrawn this as a clear template, so you can drop it on the map. So if anyone wants one of those, I'll send it out. I'll try and make it available as a download, actually, so you can have a go yourself and position it. So the basic principle, if you're not aware, is there's 3 mounds on the Garth Mountain, which are called the Belt of Orion, and then we're just tracking down all these other major stars and visiting them, and it's good stuff. And there's some new additions on that, some new finds. I'm Richard Hall. If you're not aware of Rich Planet, go and have a look. There's hundreds of videos on a range of things, mostly conspiracy type subjects. But we all owe him a debt of gratitude. Well, I certainly do, because it was only through his channel I was looking for some other weird subject, and I scrolled down and I saw this thing saying the Welsh forensic historians, and that's when I first discovered Wilson and Blackett. And I think from talking to people, most people that follow this channel and follow Wilson and Blackett's work, or even look into there being a big fraud taking place with British history, and there's a real history behind it that we all need to learn and know about, is there through his channel. So it'd be fantastic to do an update, because I'm sure there must be thousands and thousands of Wilson and Blackett fans out there who are totally unaware that the books are back available and that we're discussing it, and we've got this active group and there's people doing research and we're taking things on. It's not just a dead subject, we're taking things on and we're doing new research, which you'll see some of it in this film, which will be out in a short while. So it's not just a case of reading the books and regurgitating them and taking them on. So is Rich still living off grid? He's not quite off grid, but he's pretty close. He's it's good to see what he's done there with a townhouse. Go and check that out. In the middle of a town, he's made his house so he collects his own water and he tries to generate all his own power. So it's all that kind of crazy stuff he does. Oh, thank you. Cup of tea. There we go. Wonderful. Lucky me. Right. Okay, so that was a fun one. And then we got this. Another person who's very active, a lot of time for. We've done Creon an awful lot, particularly when it comes to Romans in South Wales, but there you go. But he's a cracking bloke, and this is Carl James Langford. And what I'm going to do now, I just have to switch over and I'll show you a little bit of video, because as you might hopefully will have seen, although not many people have watched it, early in the week there was a live feed showing what we were trying to do was save that tower that you see in the background there, or you could see before I closed it. I have the video ready to go. Where are you? Where's the video ready to go? Okay, hang on. God, so professional, isn't it? Yeah, here we go. Right, I'm with archaeologist Carl James Langford, who's, I don't know how, he's managed... Pause. Okay, thank you, Arnie. Right, okay. So yes, this is where we're down Barry Docks. It was very early Monday morning, beautiful skies, and this is a World War II watchtower, because Barry Docks played a crucial role in World War II, particularly, and this is fascinating because it ties in with a lot of stuff we do on this group, is the link. I should get the map out really so you can show the link between South Wales and Normandy and all that area. This goes way back to when you had the ancient British kingdom, if you want to call it, or empire. And what you can see is that connection still exists as far as sailing is concerned. On the map, it might not look closely linked, but in sailing terms and linking terms, they are extremely closely linked. And when it came to D-Day, just so everyone's aware of, the Allied invasion of Normandy in World War II, June the 6th, and all that good stuff, was that most or great part of the invasion set off from Barry Docks in South Wales. Now, this was a whole area of, this is far more modern history we normally deal with in this group, but it's significant because you can see what's happened, is almost all trace of that involvement has gone. It's gone to the point where this is the last trace, and that was due to be demolished until Carl stepped in. So let me know if this is too loud. Hang on a second. I shall just show you. This is a couple of minutes with Carl. Yeah, right, I'm with archaeologist Carl James Langford, who's, I don't know how, he's managed to get the permissions and everything to save this tower. How long have you been working on this, Carl?
About, well, we've known about this building for quite some time, but I did a column in the local newspaper, the Barron District News, beginning of last year, as it was one of my first items for a regular column that I do for the newspaper. And we're into over 70 odd articles now. And I said back then that this building was going to go. And then back in August, when they were developing this land, I asked ABP if they could donate it, and we didn't hear anything. And probably around, I think it may have been May this year, ABP said, right, you can have this, can you take it now? And obviously setting everything up has been difficult. We've been let down by lots of contractors. So this building itself was part of a military base here, which was the part of the build-up to the D-Day landings. In fact, this is practically one of the last buildings of a huge military supply base. And there was there were various prisoner of war camps around here, supply depots and all the rest of it. And this building itself is that last relic that we can save. The thing is, if the building comes down today, right, then we'll pick up all the bits. If it comes down complete, then it'll obviously be a bonus. If we can't move it, then we've done our best. So this is the problem we're up against. So anyway, this building itself, carry on filming. And this is Carl James Langford, Archaeology Cymru. Over to, it's described as a watchtower. It's described as an observation post. But it's definitely Second World War. That building didn't exist back then. So there would probably been about 4 of them. We're aware that there might be one in Cardiff on the docks. But as for Barry, this is basically one of the last structures in Barry from the Second World War. Everything else is gone.
Yeah, because Barry played a very important role.
Massive. Up until about 2 months ago, there was a big concrete air raid shelter there. 2 months ago, there was a beautiful Art Deco entrance gateway. That's all gone, been demolished, and I didn't say anything back then, but hopefully, if this does go, if it doesn't go, then we've done our best.
You tried, yeah, well done you, Carl.
Exactly, yeah. Many thanks.
Yeah, cheers, mate.
I'm going to get cracking on and I'm going to see, well, have a word with Pete.
Okay, we'll stop a second. Yeah. So there you go, so it's amazing stuff, well done, Carl. I mean, hats off to him, or dodgy hats on in this case. Hats on to Carl. So I think Carl's usually out on Sunday evenings, but you watch this on playback. Brilliant what he's done there. So how I came into this was, well, I got to know Carl, and he was looking for somewhere to put the tower. And this is where he came in, because we've got a little bit of land, a bit of field, somewhere to put it. And this, we're absolutely saved by one of my neighbours, Natalie, who sorted out access to a farm area, and we've got it now on a concrete plinth. And you can see how this is all done in the film, which will be out soon. You get a pretty good idea on the 2 live shows, the little live feeds you see on the just on the YouTube channel. So it's weird, isn't it? I don't understand. Well, I like the comment that it's not a Roman tower. I'm not in denial. It's not Roman. It's not Roman. Come on to more of that later. We got a Roman fort to dismiss first. But yeah, this is their. Why would they not want to not keep any of this? It's bizarre, isn't it? So we're working really hard to try and discover hidden history, because loads gets hidden all the time, and yet here we have some history which is well known. This is living lifetime, you know. And it's a wonderful old chap that Carl just mentioned. Well, a great chat with him. That's on video. You'll see that in the film. You know, remembering back to World War II, and it's being obliterated. It's something. I mean, it's not taking that much space, is it? Let's be honest. You know, the footprint of that is very small, and hopefully, a special site going to be built for it back in Barry, and we can put it back in again at some point. Rebuild the legs because you had problems in moving it. Anyway, you can see all that on the video. It's a very exciting project. So, and it's good to actually realise we can do something, you know, we're not just talking about it. Same as with the Windfarm thing and all these things, all these sites we're trying to protect, get them recognised, get them scheduled. I mean, it's, you know, it's, what a shame we don't actually have an official government body that would do some of this, isn't it? That'd be good, wouldn't it? Right, right, more good news. Let's have a look at this. I hope, well done, this is another person doing something, Luke Hugh Llewellyn, who we keep missing each other, so we've got a chance to actually meet properly. Spoken on the phone and all that kind of various times. And we've both got a common link in that we're both friends with Lawrence Main, the wonderful druid. If you type in Lawrence or Main into the search, you can see loads of videos of Lawrence talking about mostly Arthurian stuff. And he's absolutely brilliant, really charismatic, fantastic talker. And he also walks the walk. He lives in a little hovel. He lives as a druid. He's out, sleeps out on the hills. And he's just great, very clever, great stories. Again, someone else who strangely, we have different views on loads of stuff, and it doesn't matter. It's okay to disagree, all right? It's not some sort of cult. It's okay to have different versions. And I find a lot of what Lawrence talks about, he finds through dreams, and he has a firm belief in reincarnation, and that he is the reincarnation of Delvel, who was a 6th century, I guess you call him a knight, or one of the generals of Arthur. So he's got a lot of what he would consider first-hand experience and accounts of what went on in the 6th century. And amazingly, how much of that does tie in with the stuff that we found, which makes you start to wonder. And I think we shouldn't knock this kind of thing. You know, it's not the usual academic approach we're taught in school. Oh, excuse me a second. But as you'll see later in this this chair's got stuck. I can't quite reach the table. Right, sorry about that. Yeah, so what we'll see later in this programme, it just struck me now, the stuff we do put enormous amounts of credence and importance to, the textbooks and the written records, they are no more, not very reliable either in most cases, as we know from the stuff we do week after week on this show and in the videos. And the people doing the research, people like Marcel, who's off doing research, looking at all the records we can find about the migrations. Steve Willett, I cannot wait. Now the school's starting again, because you see it's been crazy busy, been all over the place. Even went to the wrestling last night for something a bit different. But now school starts, sadly, on Tuesday, and it's getting back to there. Maybe you can hear through the microphone the rain tamping down on the roof. It's that time of year we can get back sticking into our books, and I'll get more videos up, more content, and new books coming out. Okay, well, I'll pick up a couple of comments there, if I could find my glasses. Right, this is one of those crazy situations where everyone watching this probably see my glasses except me. Oh no, here we go, not as bad as I thought. The D doesn't stand for anything on D-Day. Yeah, why does D-Day? Yeah, it is a great poster. This is hand-drawn. There's no computer graphics here or anything. Hand-drawn, hand-painted by Luke. It's absolutely wonderful. So, yeah, well done. And well done, Carl. Yeah, I'm glad we met at last. Yeah. Yeah, Carl is great. He tells you straight and tells you what he thinks. And you can have a discussion. And we can disagree and we love each other to bits and don't fall out over it, which is what it should be. Same with Lawrence. Right. Okay, so I've got to plug this event because I'm very proud. I've been invited to do the introductions and then set up the talk, as I'm doing a little bit now with Lawrence. So I will definitely be there, so you can get a chance to see me as well and say hello. And it's a Monday evening now. It was going to be a Sunday. And I was like, you can't do a Sunday. That's where the live show is. So very kindly, Luke managed to get a different date. And it's now Monday the 10th of October, 7 p.m. Entry's free. I would ask everyone to make a donation, put a few pounds in the tin, please, because Luke's doing this at his own expense, and he's not like some multi-millionaire or something. And I don't know how long it's going to last. I don't know if it's going to be full. I don't know how many people are going to turn up. It's one of these Kevin Costner, I'll build it and they will come. It's that kind of thing. I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be, because Lawrence, if you haven't seen him, try and check out Lawrence Main. You can see the name in red on there. On my channel or wherever, and you'll see just how entertaining he is. It's going to be a riot. Yes, because one of the things which I should mention, is that where'd you put your glasses? Oh, I hate wearing these things. I always had perfect eyesight, and in the last few years, it's just sort of need these for reading. Because one of the major different positions on the Arthurian subject, which is I assume he's going to talk mostly about, is that the Battle of Camlan, Lawrence has moved himself, Maudie, next to where the Battle of Camlan field it is. Wilson and Blackett would agree with him on that's where it is, that's where Camlan is. And they were fighting there, but the reasons why they were fighting is very different, and who knows who's correct. What Lawrence talks more about is that the bad person in all this is actually Ilfdid. Ilfdid is like the evil one. Well, evil's probably the wrong word. Oh well. He's the one bringing in the new church, the Christianity, possibly the Roman version of Christianity. Well, that doesn't really tie in with me, but either way, he's bringing in a version of Christianity, whereas the people of North Wales are trying to maintain the old ways, the pre-Christian religion and the old ways. And we've done a lot of research showing that probably the people of North Wales and South Wales are different tribes. They are different people. So in Lawrence's version, Arthur has been hoodwinked, what would you say, almost hypnotised by, come under the influence, that's a better way of putting it, of Ilfdid. And he's the bad guys. They're actually looking to crush the Welsh things. And he has that as the prelude to why there's a big battle in Camlan, which of course is a little bit different the other way around. If you look at Wilson and Blackett's version, it's the North Walians who are bringing in the foreign mercenaries to bolster their numbers, Angles and Saxons and whatever. They're fighting for Mudrad, who becomes Mordred through history, and they're the bad guys. Let's have a look. That's to be a good discussion, I think. And we can, it'd be great to see Lawrence again as well. I haven't seen him for a few months. I'm supposed to go for a few sleep outs, but it's just, with children, summer holidays, the time flies by and it's very busy. So I hope you can make it, please. If you've got any questions, I don't know what you're going to do. Email me, I suppose. I'll have to ask Luke. There's no contact details on there. So, agreed on the other bin of beads. There we go. I got the little saying from there. It's on the poster as well. Let's read this. I'm not sure what the society is. The something society. The Saint... Oh, St. Luke, is that? Not sure. Anyway, presents an evening with a druid. Brilliant. Llandaff, so there's the details. The important thing, the railway, which is a really nice pub. It's next to Llandaff North train station. I should put North in there. And you'll just go to Llandaff North train station. There you are. We'll see it. Right, okay. We get on to the Comet now. And this is something I mentioned last week. I didn't load it up in time. This, Monica raises some excellent issues. And then we got Andrew. This has become one of those subjects which I'm not going to do in full tonight. I would like to do a full presentation, a full video. But I want that to tie in with the launch of the new Wilson and Blackett book about the Comet. And it's not a huge book. And I think this is the way forward. I think smaller books on particular topics that people can get their heads around and they won't be so expensive. And I think that'd be really helpful. And there's a lot of great new research. Andrew's done a lot of research. Monica's looked into, I know this is some of the older research. It's a really hot subject. Because there is a lot of stories going out at the moment about 535 being this terrible year, volcanoes and all that kind of awful stuff. But this is not what we're talking about with the Comet, which would be 562. And back in the day, back in the 80s, Wilson and Blackett were being asked by Professor Bailey, who was the dendrochronologist, and there's an exchange, which Monica's put together here. Now, the other thing is that this person, Alan Hassel, very, very important part of the hidden history movement or whatever the project. He worked with Wilson and Blackett, and he put up a lot of his stuff on videos on this Lucy Elastic 60. The problem is the format, it takes some getting used to. I'm not a huge fan because you get some music playing and there'll be a few lines of text and he just sits there and you can read that pretty quickly, then you have to wait for the next few lines. And what Peter Smith has done brilliantly, he's done a fantastic job. All that content is now on the forum. So if you're looking for information, go to the forum. I should put it up. It's Brit Hidden History. If you search Brit Hidden History, one word, on Google or whatever, you should find it. And there you'll find stacks of research that Alan Hassel's put together, stuff other people have put together, all about the battles, the sites. There's tons there, okay? Anyway, let's see what Monica's done here is transcribe what he said on his YouTube channel, which, by the way, is mostly quoted from Wilson and Blackett. Right, so back in 1986, in fact, I think this might actually be written by Alan Wilson, and Alan Hassel has copied it, so we're sort of following a trail a bit. So back in 1986, Professor Michael Bailey of Queen's College, Belfast, published his first catalogue of dendrochronological readings. Oh, in case you're not aware, the dendrochronological is working things out from tree rings. So the idea is the conditions, the atmospheric conditions, will decide how much growth a tree does per year, and each ring represents a year's growth. So if it's a really good year for trees, I know, good rainfall and nice sun, whatever it takes, you get a nice thick tree ring, and then if it's a poor year, you get a very thin one. So it's like a barcode. Now, I think it's a lovely idea, it's fantastic, but unfortunately it seems to be fundamentally flawed in that, for one, it's almost impossible to read the lines on particularly on softwood trees. Have a go yourself, cut the log and have a look, see if you can work out how many lines are there. The second one is, it turns out that sometimes, well, for one, when it was first done, they were using the pines up in the northwest of America, the bristletree pines, bristlecone, that's it, because they can live incredibly long periods, 2,000-3,000 years. So the idea is you find one tree that's alive now, trace it back by counting the rings, and then you find a dead tree, or a bit of a dead tree, a bit of a branch or something like that, or the remains of a dead tree. Dead tree sounds weird. Wood, isn't it? That's usually called dead trees, isn't it? Wood. Find some wood with a grain on it, and what you'll try and do then is match some of the barcode with this one. So we've got a nice long barcode going over there. Let's just see me a bit better. This long. And if the barcode you find matches this bit here, that should be the date. And also, if you find a tree that's been, I don't know, buried in a swamp or something, if you can find the bits that match, you've got the living tree, the dead tree, you can then go back and keep stepping back, which sounds wonderful in theory. It'd be great if it worked. It would really help. Unfortunately, there's no continuous line. There's no continuous overlaps. And also, for example, the conditions for a tree in Northwest Pacific America, which is where a lot of the original data was done, is completely different to, say, Egypt, where you're trying to date something. So you've got a hot country like Egypt, very different climate, trying to date things based on what the weather was like up in, Seattle. It's madness. So all those kind of things, and there's no anyway. Put all that aside. Only going back a few hundred years, only in Britain, this is what Professor Bailey's been trying to do. The problem, so what he couldn't make a continuous line of trees, he couldn't make the links. So what he was trying to do was create some form of anchor date, as Monica's shown there, an anchor date. So you can say this little pattern here, this little bit of barcode. If I know that's a certain date, then what I can do then, I can, anything with a similar barcode to this one, I will stick in that year. So there's a lot of hope and a lot of wishful thinking here. You couldn't make a complete chain down, so you have to find something with a date you know. That's the idea. They did it with Egyptology, and a right mess of it. About 1,500 years out with a thing they used to anchor their dates. But that was also happening here, okay? So what he could tell by looking at the rings, what he claims to be able to tell, and this seems reasonable, is that the period of, say, 5, 6, 7 years, where the rings, I presume, are tiny, what he's shown is a disastrous period where there's no real growth. The whole country's, blotted out. The sun's blotted out. It's horrendous. But he couldn't exactly date when that was. So, is that our cat coming in? Mimi. Mimi gets very annoyed when it's raining. She doesn't like that at all. Seems to blame us for some reason. I'm sorry it's raining, Mimi. It's not our fault, okay? So Mimi, by the way, is Chinese for cat. Very creative. Right, so we've got this little barcode here, okay? What date is it? Now, funny enough, he used tiny with Lawrence, he used the Battle of Camlan. And the Battle of Camlan seems to be dated in around about 535. Whereas, if you look at Wilson and Blackett, the reason they're out on the dates is because they haven't allowed for the 30 years difference between the calendars. So you've got the calendar we use today, more or less, but we date things from the birth of Christ. We say Anno Domini. It's curiously, anyway, after the day of Christ. It's after the birth. That's year 0. whereas the British, their view was the year 0 is the crucifixion. So you've got this lag of 30 odd years, which makes the difference in the dates, right? So that's what we're trying to. So Alan Wilson was in a lot of communication with Professor Bailey, because first of all, Professor Bailey found this chunk of years, if you like, the rings, where there's no growth, and he wanted to find a date for it. And Alan Wilson was in contact with him, so he thought it was a volcano. And Alan explained, well, if it's a volcano, a Krakatoa is the favourite. All the countries in between, they'd all get obliterated. It must be a comet, and he worked out the dates. But then Alan Wilson got written out because maybe Professor Bailey discovered that he's unacceptable as a historian. So he took his research but didn't ever credit him. And the date 535, this is a bizarre thing, it's now been used to date all the other things. Ugh, there we are, getting to circles like that. So I might have probably repeated some of this. But anyway, let's look at. So back in 1886, Professor Michael Bailey of Queen's College, Belfast, hopefully you can see it as well, published his first catalogue of dendrochronological readings. He found that there had been catastrophe in Britain and Ireland in the 6th century AD. All the forests had been destroyed, and he had a problem. All that Bailey had was a long list of dendrochronology readings. He had no anchor date to fix the dates of these ancient tree ring readings. He noted that Chinese had recorded a massive explosion of the island of Krakatoa in 535. He then wrote and published that the volcanic ash had destroyed the forests of Britain and Ireland. Then, dabbling in history like a 5-year-old given a box of hand grenades at Christmas, that's definitely Alan Wilson. Even a child would realise that if Krakatoa was the cause, then everything in its path would be affected, and not specifically Ireland and Britain. Bailey contacted Wilson and Blackett to inform Bailey about the comet and the Battle of Camlan. Ignoring what he'd been told, he changed the date of the event from 562 to 535. So Camlan got moved to match Krakatoa. It's all bonkers. In doing so, he caused a great deal of damage to ancient British history. Misreading of historic dates is very important, and Alan Wilson explains how the English used the Roman Church's interpretation of the incarnation, which explains it all. As I said, the death or the crucifixion rather than the birth. Bailey was the ultimate academic parasite who never even recognised the works of Wilson and Blackett. Bailey was reported to the ultimate academic. Oh, hang on. There's a repeat there. Yes, there's a repeat. He went to hiding, but he'd already done the damage. Now we have a voice, we're repairing it. Michael Bailey is not a qualified historian, had no right to dabble in things he didn't know. Yeah, he's just one who studies tree branches. Okay, so now Andrew Whelan here, another article about the Horned Devil. Alan Haughton found this article in Science Daily. The comet's glancing past. We got some comments here. Let's have a quick look on this.
Yeah, I'm reading.
Yeah, Clayton's Wall, Celts, Anglo-Saxons, Rosetta Stone, Moon Landing, Richard Nixon's Fomenko, yeah, he rings the moon, Santa Claus, Easter Bunny, JW, Telescope, Dinosaur, Disney, Braveheart. Yeah, it's all nonsense, isn't it? What can I do? What can I do? How do I get to Lucy Elastic History, please? Right, if you search, I guess I'll put the link up to the forum. I think all of it is Peter Smith's done a huge job. I think all of it's on our Britainshidden History forum if you want to read it. If you want the videos, just go to YouTube, type in that Lucy Elastic 60, and the channel's just sitting there. I don't know how long it'll sit there for, I don't know. Britainshidden History. We have Alan Hassell's list on my leaving list. Okay, all right. So I'll try and share as much as that. I'll put the link up to the forum. All right. So what we're talking about is the comet, and I got more to put out about Halley's comet, or Hawley as he should be pronounced. He's Halley these days. Although at the time apparently his name was pronounced Hawley, according to Alan Wilson, how he knows all these things, but right. So we're saying this year the effect of comets. So comets classing blow create a fiery explosion. So all this ties in then with I haven't made the text bigger. Sorry. The airburst affected an area bigger than New Jersey, setting fires across 9,200 square miles. The thing is, people are saying that these comets wouldn't cause the damage you're talking about. They wouldn't cause the country to be uninhabitable and the devastation. And why the comet's so important is that before this period, we had an advanced civilization. A lot of it's been labelled as Roman. That's another issue, whether it's Roman or British, but almost besides the point. What's more important is all these towns and buildings all destroyed. And we have this idea that somehow the Romans came along, made these beautiful buildings, underfloor heating, lovely, comfortable, wonderful, super superior beings. And when these superior beings moved away, the British said, yeah, I don't like living in those. We'd rather live in mud huts in fields. It's just bizarre how they get away with these narratives. Or the other idea is that they weren't able to maintain the buildings. I mean, who was actually doing all the building and everything? And even if the Romans did have, say, a military presence, it'd be local people doing all the building and maintenance, all that kind of stuff. The whole thing doesn't add up. What seems more likely, and what Alan Wilson calls the biggest event in the whole of British history, is this comet came smashing through in the 6th century and destroyed everything. There's even accounts there of early, what these days you probably call Holland, that Jutes, and who had already come over to settle, having to go back to their own countries for a while until the country recovered. And this then ties in with the questing knights coming across from Armorica, again the Normandy connection, because the British royal families had to go and hide there, and then, well, not hide, but retreat there for safety until the land becomes inhabitable again, because it was so bad. All the buildings were destroyed. We've got the vitrification and the melting of the stones on Hadrian's, on the forts up in Scotland. All this on the path of the comet. So the biggest event in our entire history has been written out of history. There's even a play by Shakespeare about it, which doesn't even get included on Shakespeare's complete works. I have a copy here somewhere. I keep meaning to do something on that. I'll have to read the whole play one of these days. In fact, I might do that this evening after the show. There we go. Bit of light reading. So this is why this comet is so important, and why I think it seems there's so much reluctance to accept it as part of our history. Much easier to say just primitive savages living here with no history. And this is what we're going to come on to, and attribute everything to the Romans, and it couldn't be maintained after they left. Uncanny parallel with what Fomenko talks about with Russian history, which we'll get on to in a minute. But what Andrew's talking about here is the devastation the comet could cause, and that these things are real, and that why there's every possibility there was one in the period we're talking about. Yes. And what is the play about the comet, Ross? I think it's called Merlin and the Comet. Hang on, it's usually there, so I keep meaning to read it. It's in my must read it next pile. Oh, can you see it on? No. I'll put a video up as soon as possible about that, hopefully in the next few days, and show it to you. Yeah, I think it's called Merlin and the Comet, but it's also it's attributed to Shakespeare, but there's another name on the cover, like a pen name. The whole thing's very strange. Very, very strange. I'm pretty sure it's Merlin and the Comet. And the opening scene, I've read the opening scenes, and it's the British. This is the other great thing, because it's Shakespeare, and the history he talks about is clearly the history before the rewrite. You know, Shakespeare doesn't talk about Celts or migrating from Europe or any of that stuff. None of that comes into Shakespeare's work. The accepted history of Britain before that period didn't come across any of those things. What he talks about is things like Troilus and Cressida, where we go back to ancient Troy. He writes a play about King Lear, ancient British real historical kings who've been pushed out of our history since then and into the myths and legends box. Right, so we're talking here about Halley's Comet, or Hawley's. Some people say Halley's, Halley's, Hawley's. That's how he said it, apparently. So this is an area bigger than New Jersey, so they're devastating, these things. And witnessed by Native Americans as told through their oral histories. Now, this one is talking about something happening much earlier. I think it's 250s, isn't it? Yeah, 252. I think these dates are very elastic. Alan suggested, I think he means Alan Wilson, that if something happened in 562... What's that, Mark? You found it? I knew it's right there somewhere, 'cause it's in my must-read-it pile.
Well, I found this one, which someone's saying...
They can see it. Can someone see it on the camera?
I don't think so.
Oh, the birth of Merlin. Hang on. Let's interfere 1 second. Interrupt. There you go. The birth of Merlin. I managed to find this copy easy enough. It's Cornell University Library. And it is attributed to William Shakespeare and William Rowley. I'll just read you there. What's it say on the back? No, it's just talking about the university's work. Yeah, they're just talking about themselves, and it's kind of a reprint facsimile. You know, it's got the old-fashioned writing and all that. So it's I'll just give it a little flavour. Shall I? There's a little flavour of that. So I got the trouble is everything's Mer's that'll be Merlin, I presume. How now, Uncle? Why do you search your pockets so? Do you miss anything? The clown. Ha, cousin Merlin. I hope your beard does not overgrow your honesty. I pray remember you are made up of... What do you reckon? Sister's thread. You got these F's and S's look the same and all that kind of stuff you get with the old print. It's quite difficult.
Sifters?
Sifters. It could be sifters or sisters. Made up of something, Fred. I am your mother's brother, whoever was your uncle. Why wearing can you task my duty, uncle? So it's a lot like that, you know, reading Shakespeare's plays, not everyone's cup of tea. But the first acts... Hang on, see if we found... There we go. Oh, there are nice big letters. That's the original cover, looks like. The Birth of Merlin. And there's a lot of big mention of the Comet in here. And it's all about the invading Saxons and stuff. So, Pete means this is my to-read-it pile. So, that's well done, Alan. It's where it should be. Right, so Alan suggested something happened in 562. The evidence is there somewhere. I think that Halley's Comet, typo, but Alan asked me to correct that. Sorry, Andrew, I missed that one. May have been the culprit yet again for the Ohio visitations. So we're doing this connection with America again. The reason being that according to nature.com, comets of short duration are subject to a number of variables which can affect their periodicity, how often we see them. Did it take them 70 years to come around, or did it take them 20 years? Apparently, if most, if not all of them, originate outside the solar system, and their parabolic trajectories are converted into elliptical orbits by the planet Jupiter. That's interesting. Because obviously you get into this whole astronomical thing then, where we got Jupiter and Saturn, the great planets, they're plucking these things out, they're eating their children, and all the time what they're doing is taking things out of dangerous orbits and making them safe for us. Each time they wander through our solar system, their orbits can be affected. So it's entirely possible that Halley's Comet will be subjected to further interference by Jupiter, depending upon their proximity and angle of approach. Mike had checked that Halley's Comet periodicity may be plus or minus 4 years, and says simply plus 4 years cannot be... Oh, thank you, Arnie. Sorry, well, there's the last page. You want to read it again yourself? Sorry, I didn't share it again. Look at the comets which caused the devastations in 252 and 383 in Ohio, in America, and apply my own brand of super mathematics and orbital mathematics to the problem. We can see it's not, what he's saying, it's not just a regular period. You can add or subtract 4 years each time. So 536 minus 75 minus 75 gives us the 3861, which is pretty close to 383. So 383, Comet over Ohio, could easily have been Halley's Comet, known as the Horned Devil. And I should have copied down the graphic as well, because what you have is this big red ball with the two sort of flames coming off the sides of it, the double tail, which looks like a rather unpleasant devil type thing. Now, the 2521 is more problematical, requiring one 75-year orbit and a much shorter 56-year orbit. It is still a candidate, but apparently trying to figure out the cause of the orbital interference is virtually impossible. Maybe it's another comet, eh? The point, or the date's wrong. Maybe they got their 252 that could easily be 20 years out, I'd have thought. The point here is that according to UD.ed news, these comets left debris all over Ohio. The Indians even made jewellery out of the metals they found. The problem with the 562 comet over Wales is that any debris would have to differentiated from that left by Halley's comet in 536. This is where Andrew and I disagree. I think it's the one and the same comet, that there wasn't a 536 one. Moreover, there's not seen to be any fluctuation in the tree ring date of a 562. So the question is, was it just one comet in 536, or was there a second in 562? I would argue the reverse. Was it was it just one in 562, or was it one in 536 as well? If so, why is there no supporting temperature variation in the data record? Then we can look at the historical records. British academia is no help. They don't even acknowledge comet activity has affected British history. This is the problem. We can't get the subject looked at. They are guilty of neglecting their duty and active, nothing short of academic vandalism, in my opinion. Yeah, excellent article. And like I said, a couple of details, I might have a different spin on it, but the point is the same. Why is there no research on this? What possibly the most important event in the whole of British history? Absolutely devastated the country. Because Alan Wilson says, in those days they didn't send help when you had a disaster. They came and took all your stuff and took your country as well. Right, here we go. A little bit chirpy one now. Cheerful one. Just a bit to split the show a bit. Sunday evening. It got very heavy lately. There's been long talks about certain subjects. So here we go. Here's one. I'm going to go and visit that. If I'd had chance last week, that's where I'd have gone when I was in West Wales. St Cladai. And Katie, thank you, Katie. Took some lovely pictures. Beautiful church. And it's got some stones there, which I think are well worth having a crack at. I hope John Griffiths is watching. We can do some work on this, reading these. I wasn't aware of these stones there, so it's as you can see, they've been chalked in. So they've been left outside so long that the originals gets worn away. Now, the interesting thing on these, if you look on that side, you see some lines, which is said to be Ogham. And then this, even though it doesn't read in Latin, is said to be Latin. The only people missing from the equation are the British, which is where the stones are found. And these interpretations, I always find them very amusing when you have a chance to read them. All right, I'm not going to go on too much about wind farms. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but they really are going to be a blight in our country. They do not help the planet. They don't help anything. There's another story here, another one just smashing over 300-foot turbine, which is, 100 metres? The new one's going to be 200 metres. God help us if these things crash and fall, literally crash and burn. All right, so I'm going to that now, but another one's gone. So I'm going to say a little bit about it, just a little bit, indulge me please, is that this is a steel column. So this, to make this, they've had to dig the iron ore out of the ground. It's had to go through a smelting process, through a furnace to be refined. The metals had to be rolled and manufactured, all at a high temperature using enormous amounts of coal. The coal, as I was saying, these, what do they call them, smelting plants and that don't work on AA batteries. They work on old-fashioned energy, coal and stuff. So all that, and then most of this these days is done over in India. We don't have the resources here anymore. We're being too good to do things like that. Although we do have Indian owns Tata Steelworks in Port Talbot, so maybe the raw iron comes over, the raw metal, so it has to get shipped thousands of miles and then transported, and the roads are built to get up the hill, concrete platforms for it to be laid down, and then it's erected with huge cranes which drive burning fuel, enormous amounts of pollution. As shown you before, the blades, the amount of carbon fibre, they can't be recycled, they'll get buried in the ground. Millions of tons of concrete to make the platforms and the roads and the substations and the cabling, and this thing's only been up for a few years and it's fallen down. So that is a massive net negative, whichever way you measure it, in pollution, carbon, all those things, if you're into all that. Never mind the fact these big spinning things, the tips are going at 400 or 500 miles an hour, and they slaughter birds and things like that, and the heat they generate attracts insects, which attracts the bats. So they go there and they get chopped to bits. And because of the height, the hunting birds like to perch And when they take off, they get splattered. They're horrendous. But there you go. It's a big money scam. And we're going to lose historical sites under them. That's why I'm mentioning it. Not because it's political. But these things tend to go on hilltops, which tends to be where the ancients put their burial sites, their stones, all their stuff. They lived on the hilltops, possibly because the water levels are higher. There's very little you find in the valleys. The hilltops are where you need to look for the ancient archaeology, and that's exactly where they're putting them. Hey, what can you do? Right, this is a long one here. You can pause, come back and look at it later. Look how far into the show we are. Well done, Marshall. Marshall actually called this Taking the Fight to the Enemy, because this is on... Oh, I haven't put the name of it. Oh, no. It's Anglican.net. If you go to Anglican.net, you can go to the Anglican page on Facebook, and Marshall will go back onto this one because it's been up at least a week, this comment now, and yet there's still no response or anything, which I find a bit strange. No one's even says rubbish, nothing. I don't know. You can read that yourself if you've got more time, so we're running a bit late. I'm trying to cut the shows down. 2 hours is too long. And also we're back to school time, so I have to start going to bed earlier again. Holidays are over. Yeah, I know. Sad, isn't it? And this is a really, really good summary. And I'll do a small video on this. It's a cracking summary going through the basic story of how Christianity began in Britain, not Rome. All right, so we'll come back to that. Well done, Marshall. Get out there, do things. That's what I'm trying to encourage again today. You can do some stuff from your armchair. Like some of the stars to fit on Orion. Len Crowther, one of my new heroes, he discovered some of those stars sitting at home just using Google Earth. Marcel's written this from her home, writing it. You haven't got to, there's only some of us got access to yomp up the hills and do all that kind of thing. Not everyone wants to be, front of camera like me and do the kind of things I enjoy and public stuff. There's still things you can do from your own home. Although it's better if you do get out, if you can, get a bit of exercise. Right, finally, 9 o'clock. Oh my God, on the dot. Not there's, I didn't aim for it to be at 9 o'clock. We've got a little musical interlude here. Having a break, quick. I've got a bit of my birthday cake still left. It's a great thing about these shop cakes. I don't know what they make them out of, but they just don't go off. You can have these for months. Does make you wonder what's in them, doesn't it? And I might do a dairy allergy with a cream on these, no problem. So what is that, mate? Excuse me, right. So we've done some news, lots of stories, and some on the comment. Right. What I want to do is just sit back and enjoy this little bit now, because Angie's found loads of pictures for me. Because what we're talking about is the Russian history, only in very general terms. More about how they faked their history. That's more important, okay? Look at the... Oh, no, we got the story first. Sorry, yeah, we look at Britain v. Russia. It's a bit of Britain. Here's something I would love. They are looking for volunteers. Please. I've gone on about this fort in the wood for at least 2 years. To give you a little bit of background, they discovered possible wall. They found some large block stones up in the northwest of England and immediately decided they found a Roman fort. Absolutely ridiculous. All they'd found some stones in the ground. Must be Roman. So this has gone on, and what they're doing now is they're getting more and more funding. It's becoming a bigger event. And I'll show you the website in a second. So what you've got an opportunity at the moment is Dr. Tudor Davis, good Welsh name, help expert scientist Dr. Tudor Davis reconstruct the ancient environment at, it's called I don't know how you pronounce this, Burskov maybe? Burskov Roman Fort, Tuesday 6th of September, alright, 2 days time. Obviously if you've got school, children, things like that, it's going to be difficult, but if you can get there, northwest of England, please. You do have to pay, I think, I'm not sure how to pay for this one. We are crowdfunding a practical workshop session introducing you to environmental archaeology. Learn how soil samples can give us an insight into past environments. What was the land use around the Roman fort nearly 2,000 years ago? What type of woodland and plants grew in Roman biscuits or Roman obsessed? The answers are in the soil. Don't miss this one. Book your place now. Only £30. There you go for the day. To reserve your place, send an email to these people. No prior experience, necessary training provided. So you get to do some digging, you get to see how they're doing it, all that kind of thing. Right, now, let's dig into this a little bit. Excuse the pun. All right, here we go. Hang on a second. So there's the Anglican.net. I had all these pages right, didn't I? There we are. That's Marshall's thing. Okay, here we go. This is... Oh, yeah. Actually, I do need to return just to this a little bit more a second. Hang on. Just give a bit of background to the story. Let's get a bit of background from the story. Okay, so there we are. This is the kind of thing you'll see. Obviously Roman. Why? That's the question I'm asking. Why? I've been nagging them for the last couple of years. I think they've forgotten, because I hadn't nagged them for quite a long time. I think they've forgotten my name, because for a while they wouldn't answer me at all. All right, so here's my response. Looks great. How did you work out that the fort was Roman? I didn't think there were any records of any Roman forts in that area. As I'll show on their website, there's no record of any legions, anything in that area, no military importance. So why this? And this, I love this. A combination of geophysical survey and excavation. And we are 100%. I'm very few things in life I'm 100% sure of. But they're 100% sure it's a Roman... I can't see this reply. So I think I've just said something like, well, can you give me some more details of how a geophys survey and excavation shows it's Roman? Oh, that's right. But how can you tell the identity of who built something? So if you find a wall, you could geophys survey to see how wide the wall is, how deep it goes. You can attempt to do all those wonderful things. What type of stone was used? You can't read date stones. An excavation, you can't directly date like that either. What they tend to do is vicinity dating. So if you find a layer, and in that layer there's a coin, and a coin can be dated, you can say that the layer cannot be any older than that coin. It might be more recent. You know, there might be a Roman coin in my garden, but it can't be... there's no coin in my garden from the year 2035 because we haven't got there yet. So there's things like that you can do. But even the dating of the coins is extremely dubious. This is one of the things you'll see more videos than John Griffith's doing. I mean, if you look at Fomenko's work, they're hundreds of years out sometimes, even 1,000 years out. It gets really crazy. But anyway, so just from looking at the stones, I was thinking, how can you tell the identity? So, I mean, the answer you get, the geophys survey shows that the fort of Berska to be a square shape with rounded corners. Typical of those built by Agricola and the 20th Legion in the 1st century. And I would say typical of anybody building a castle, you tend to have square corners. The soldiers and engineers of the 20th Legion were Roman citizens. Ergo, which is a weird Latin word, I think, for there you have it. But plus, you would like to explain why the fort is not Roman, so you've thrown a question back at me. Now, this is a re-editing. This first one was quite brief. Oh, no, I think this might be the original one. It's been changed since. Anyway, so I said, thank you for editing your comment to include some information. So the idea is that because the geophys shows rounded corners, it's 100% Roman. And I didn't say it's definitely not Roman. I was just curious as to how you could be so sure. Is the assumption that the British never built anything with rounded corners? I read your website and information. It says there is no record of the Romans being in this area, or that it was considered to be important. The Romans were excellent record keepers. So how could they have missed such a massive structure, this fort, more of a castle, that would have presumably needed a very large garrison? Do we have any idea yet what the garrison consisted of? Was there an extra legion in Britain that we don't know about? No answer on that one, still no answer. KTBB, well done. Hi there, great find, well done. What criteria do you use to categorise it as Roman? We use factual criteria. Historic England agree. It's a scheduled ancient monument, 100% Roman. It's really bizarre how they do this. So, fair play to KTB and Entel. What are these criteria? So what they've given us is this link for Historic England. All right? This could have been its own little short video, couldn't it? So, okay, let's go and have a look. Let's go and check out this. Here it is. Follow that link. You get this Roman fort and sections of Roman roads. There's the number if you want to look it up, 1470328. And there it is, Berkskirk, which is in Ormskirk, Lancashire. Right, I'm sorry it's a bit texty here. I'm going to have to read this bit to you, okay? Rarity, asterisk. Roman sites of all descriptions are rare in West Lancashire. And this multi-phase fort, you can see it's been built over long periods, that's what I mean by multi-phase, fills a void in the military occupation of lowland northwest England. Survival. Despite being reduced by ploughing, it retains significant archaeological deposits relating to its construction, the nature and longevity of its occupation. Potential. It will revise our understanding of the Roman military occupation of Lancashire and add considerably to our knowledge of the economy of Roman Britain. Period. Roman military monuments are important in representing army strategy and government policy, and forts are of particular significance to our understanding of the period. Documentation. It is well documented through aerial and geophys survey, confirmed by archaeological evaluation. So there's no historical record of this. There's no mention of it. Taken together with other Roman forts in the region, including Wigan and Ribchester, Berkskirk, will provide great insight into Roman military strategy. Right, so you can read all this. You can find that. I'll put it in the description. What you find as you read through it all, the only possible thing, and this is 2013, all right? A narrow trench was opened to investigate, blah, blah, blah. Considerable quantities of pottery, ceramic building material, and other finds. And this is presumably what the dating's based, or the identifying, is the only thing it can be based on. The people running the dig don't seem to be aware of this. They think they found a new dig about 2018. So this confuses me as well. If this was discovered in 2018, how come there's a dig in 2013? There's even mentioned here 1846 tithe map still calls it Castle Field. This is starting to seem more and more like Caermead to me. If you type in Caermead in the search, you must have seen it already. What's it called? The British Palace that's been reburied because it doesn't fit the Roman narrative. Well, I would argue this one doesn't fit the Roman narrative either. But there's too many interests at stake for them just fill it in and hope everyone forgets. So that's 2013. They're saying they found considerable quantities of pottery, ceramic building material. And this presumably is what the dating is based on, because you can't date stones. All the rest tells you there's large, substantial block walls, external ditches. The evaluation also produced a significant quantity of pottery. Here we go again. Now, specialist work has dated the pottery to the 1st to 4th centuries. Well, isn't that marvellous? Because that's basically, they're saying this looks Roman. Romans were here between the 1st and late 4th century, therefore it's dated late 1st, 4th century. Do you see how the circular argument works? We're claiming the Romans were here between 1st century and 4th century. We're trying to make the pots be Roman, therefore they must be 1st, 4th century. You can't actually date a pot either. There's a clay oven. Right, so my question to them now has been, can I see some pictures of all this, please? This is 9 years ago. And if you go on that group, please have a look on Facebook, go in Fort in the Wood, ask them some questions and put their toes over the fire a bit and find out what they're basing all this on. Because they found, supposedly, this ceramics in 2013. So I said, please can we see a photograph of them? And the response is, the report is still being put together. Well, that's 9 years ago. Why are they not sharing the photographs? Why not sharing any pictures of the things that are found? Have a look yourself. Go and have a look up. Search for Berkskirk, whatever. Berkskirk. Search for you'll find Fort in the Woods. You'll find Roman Fort in the Woods. You'll find all those things. You can even go. This is Historic England's website. This is a publicly financed body. So this is not private. We pay for this. Okay, so then you can read all this stuff. Now, so what I did there was go to, you can also go to the Fort in the Wood website, fortinthewood, one word, .org.uk, the Lost Roman Fort of Lancashire. Come and join us this summer. I'd love to have got up there. Where's the bit I really love it? Right, you can read all this about the Roman forts. It's most significant. There we go, read from here down, all right? It's the most significant Roman discovery made in Lancashire for over 100 years. Its recognition as a Roman auxiliary fort brings the total of known Roman forts on the coastal southwest plain to only one. It's only one. Until now, there's been very little evidence of the Roman military occupation of this coastal district. On or near the coast, there are only a handful of other known forts, being Kirkham and Lancaster, and then Ribchester. By the way, none of which are necessarily Roman. That's another point. Fort in the Wood potentially fills a large gap in the knowledge of Roman military occupation of lowland northwest England. There's a line here somewhere that says, this leads us, we have to rewrite Roman history. Oh, that's the line I really want to see. There's loads of trips, they're doing good fun, indoctrinating children, educating children. You can become part of the team, you can get the information, and they seem to be constantly raising money. So good for them for raising all the money, but they also managed to get permission to do all these things. Whereas, if you remember when Wilson and Blackett, for example, this is supposedly, come on, let me go back. Why would let me go back? These are amateurs and volunteers, they've applied for funding, they've got it. When Wilson and Blackett were trying to do their archaeology in the 1990s, looking at St. Peter's Castle, Church, is only obstacles and no help, no funding, quite the opposite. They blocked it as much as possible. So it's very strange. Now, the other thing I noticed is when you go to the Heritage England, they basically copy and paste what's on the Fort in the Wood. Have a look for yourself, Fort in the Wood website. And then Fort in the Wood website says, aha, well, we know it's Roman because English Heritage agrees with us. And English Heritage has copied and pasted what they've written. It's very, very weird. Very, very weird. And so please, if anyone can get along to that dig, just do it. Just do it. And report back to the group and let us know how they're doing it. Maybe they've got some amazing way of working out it's Roman. I'm not aware of it. Right, okay, just 1 second. I'm just going to get back to where we were. Okay. All right, so thank you, KTBP, for trying. There's a couple of other people trying on that site, asking questions. Just get fobbed off with this, which doesn't say anything apart from repeat what's on the Fort in the Wood. If anyone can get some pictures of things that are found, perhaps they're better at searching on Google than I am. I've asked them directly and I can't get any. I would love to see them, please. Right, now, what we're going to go on to now is sometimes people say, oh, you're Roman obsessed or whatever like that, and our government would never do this kind of thing, or not many people say that perhaps, but they say that this idea that the history's being rewritten is too big an idea to get their heads around. Can't imagine our past is so different to what we think it is. And what I find is sometimes useful is to look at other countries then. Oh, it's getting warm, isn't it? It's supposed to get cooler as the evening comes on. Is look at, sometimes you think other countries, think, well, maybe in Russia, if you show an example of what happened in Russia, you could think, oh, maybe I could go with that. And sometimes we've done videos looking at New Zealand, where the history's being completely rewritten. The early sort of white tribes like the Waitaha are being removed. The Maori can claim to be indigenous people. It's done for political reasons. If the Maori can claim they were the first settlers, they claim everything. Things like the Waitaha are a real problem, and the fact they find ancient discoveries which are clearly, possibly thousands of years old, massively predating the Maori anyway, they have to be bulldozed out and destroyed. So this goes on all over the world. All right, now one of the great stories that we're all taught in our history as well is a story of Genghis Khan and how the Mongol hordes just rampaged through the whole steppes of Asia, including the conquering of Russia. Now, what Fomenko are claiming is all that is effectively a fiction. There were gangs of horsemen running around. There were armies. There was a horde. They explain what the horde is, or was, what the name means, who Genghis Khan was. What they also show, let's just go through the conventional story first. You got this great king. I love his story. What's his name? Timurchin, the original, and the lone wolf. And he goes up and he fights, and gradually these tribes of horsemen get together, make this huge army, and they go sweeping across. And they've got recurved bows and cavalry, and they outfight everybody, and it's the biggest land empire in history. The biggest land empire in history. Might actually be not what I think it is. This is how big a fraud can happen. And Fomenko does a very good job of showing how it's done. So Angie's found these pictures. Curious, because Angie knows from a Chinese background as well, from Chinese history, and she studied history as well, is that it's curious to see how these pictures are much more recent. You know, they're much more recent than the events are supposed to have happened. And these paintings have been commissioned to look Oriental. This is the Chinese government want to look Oriental as well. It's great for because you look at Mongolia now, and as the point Fomenko makes, you got this desolate wilderness. Really, hardly anyone lives there. It's got this brutal climate, which goes from very low to very high temperatures. You can imagine the people being super tough. But to have a big enough population and infrastructure to support an invasion army that can take over, half the known world in those days, does seem strange. We never think of these things, do you? I never doubted this story. I never thought about it. It's curious to look at the different portraits. Anyway, this is paintings. This is supposed to be dated from 1280. It's probably far more recent. Far more recent. Probably a couple of 100 years old. There you go. This is the sort of images we're used to. The kind of floppy hats and the heavy cavalry and the swords. And this ties in with Chinese history and Russian history. And then we've got Kublai Khan. Again, it's all part of this dynasty. Wonderful, these paintings. I love them. Absolutely fantastic. This is the Yuan dynasty in China, because they're supposed to have wheeled around then and gone down to China and captured all the silk and all those. I've loved this history. One of my favourite parts of history. And to discover the reality could be completely different. Bit of a shock to me, so there we go. I thought I'd share some of it. Some nice battle scenes, a Mongol melee. Again, these paintings are supposed to be 14th century, probably far more recent. Okay, more pictures. Baghdad, as far as Baghdad. Okay. Now, the weird thing is, there's a few weird things, is that there's no accounts from the time of any of these things actually happening. As Fomenko says in there, and he's right, you assume that all these stories about what happened in his childhood and how he rose up to become the great ruler and how the tribes got brought together and how his wife got kidnapped and all these amazing stories have been somehow handed down, that they were first eyewitness accounts, or there's ancient scrolls, or there's paintings, or there's something, there's folklore, there's anything. There's not. There's not. All of this has been created far more recently, the whole story. This gets really weird. All right, I don't want to get too much into the Tartarian thing. I'm going to say, let's read a few comments. I can see the comments are whistling along. Is it related to this one?
Well, a bit of it.
Oh, Russia is significant. Oh, here we go. Yeah, Russia is definitely significant. Capalicious. We were the Scythians. Well, possibly. I don't think you'd be too certain about any of this. One point that Fomenko does make is that the word Assyria and Syria could be a corruption of Russia. And this comes on to the language thing, which gets really interesting, I think. I'll go back a bit. Hang on, I just saw David comment on there as well. Can you scroll it up a bit, please? I'm through the mess. Go back a bit. Is that I had one of those moments when, oof, sheesh, that was a real heavy stone to swallow. If all the languages come from ancient Assyrian, and we're doing our research, and we can see that the Welsh language, Cymraeg, very ancient, trace it back to ancient Assyrian, and then you got the languages spreading out, like you got Sanskrit in India, very similar to Welsh, Cymraeg. They share a common origin and spread out from there. This all seems very traceable and provable, as much as you can prove anything, in that you can read these ancient documents and stuff using the Welsh language. Like, you can read Egyptian hieroglyphs using Cymraeg. It's very easy once you know, it takes a few minutes to learn, really. I'm going to come on to those in a second, Art, thank you. Then, well, if it's true that Russia actually is a reference to Assyria, that changes the source further north, potentially. And that ties in with some notes I just read of Wilson and Blackett, which, I've got to get up there. They've been typed up by Margaret, Paul's wife. Thank you very much again for doing that. So looking at the earliest Cymry and British originating from the steppes, potentially, before they came down to the Middle East and Assyria and the rest of the story of Babylon, all that kind of stuff. All this needs unpicking. It's really fascinating. I will share those like essays, and I'll put them up as short videos, probably about 10 minutes each. Excuse me a second. A bit of this chemical cake's got caught somewhere. You do wonder, it's like it's baked yesterday. We've had it for a week. Anyway, so that changes a lot of things. And how the Scythians tie in, that's another one. I think Scythians were a smaller group, but anyway, okay, let's look at this now.
Yeah, I went up.
You got up already, yeah?
Yeah.
Right, there are maps showing townships under the ice. Okay, all right, a second. I think I missed too far back on that one. Johnny Nigma, any update on your submitted article for a certain newspaper, Ross? I've still got a copy of the article in the Brecon and Radnor Express from when you did your talk about hieroglyphics. Well, thank you very much. Yes, we'll have a look at that article again. Yes, thank you, Johnny. Yes, I have been asked to write an article for the Light newspaper, which some of you might know. Very controversial newspaper. And doing an article about how history also gets changed. There's that old saying, isn't there? If you think the news is fake, then you want to see what they've done to our history. I'm not sure who came up with that, but I love it. That's what I should get as a T-shirt, perhaps. So, that story will be in the next issue, and hopefully I'll be a regular contributor every month. Even more, hopefully I might even get paid one day. Right, so let's look. Is the Genghis? Right, here we go. So, couple issues. Genghis Khan was a tall, blonde, reddish-bearded, fair-skinned fella. Yes. The modern historic persona's got a modern-day Mongoloid makeover. Yeah, that's the kind of thing we're going to get onto in a minute. Can you scroll it down again, please? Just a minute. Whoop. Okay, so I think we're on the same sort of piece. So anyway, these are supposed to be 12th century, 13th century cannons, because China's another one projecting its history further back. We want to go into the Russian stuff. Now we just got some random pictures. So here's the idea. We've got this, how it broke up. So you've got the Huan dynasty. So the precursors to China is Taiwan, where Angie's from, holding out. Aborigines. Never really part of China. But there you go. It's a bit like the Falklands. No, it's useful. They want it. Same with happened to Hong Kong. Anyway, so I'm getting into politics. Right, Golden Horde. So all this Russian area. Right, now what Fomenko's arguing, it was the complete opposite was the case. So I'm going to summarise it now, just give you a rough idea what it's all about. If you've heard about things like, where's the book's gone? Oh, it's scattered around the house now. I'll show you some of it in a second. I've got that PDF. If you've heard of new chronology and Fomenko and what it's all about, but the core of it is that this history, where's my cursor gone? Actually started from Russia. This was the centre of it, right up to these areas, which I'll go on to in a second. And from there they spread out. Now, the key twist, which is where the similarities to the Roman thing seems very strange, is that when the Romanovs, the famous emperors, the Romanovs, the ones we know like Peter and all those people, the ones who were at the wrong end of the Russian Revolution, Nikolai and I'm trying to think, what's the name? Empress. What's the famous? I've got the name. Tsarina, the female Russian empress. What's the name? Very famous. Anyway, all that lot, all the ones we know, going right the way back to the 1600s. They when they took over the throne in 1605, round about then, there seems to have been a civil war. And again, in the 17th century, this seems to be when a lot of history was rewritten, and this way it comes all the way back to Britain's history being rewritten as well, round about that period. there was a civil war. The Romanovs took over the running of the country. They became the new rulers, and they set about removing the historical claim of the people they replaced. Because their problem was the Romanovs did not have much of a claim on the Russian throne. Very, very similar to what happened in Britain in the 17th century when the Stuarts were kicked out with the Glorious Revolution. First of all, we had William and Mary, and then went on through those, Anne and all those people. Then we had the Hanoverians, who got hardly any claim at all to the British throne. And it's very sensitive to this day, because the current descendants, the current occupiers of the throne, are still basing themselves on that. What they do not want to happen is for it to be shown as an older royal family, which goes all the way back, thousands of years, and they are actually the true rulers of the islands, if you like. This is where possibly Alan Wilson and those got into so much trouble. Look at this. Remember last week we had the Kanakass, they got the kick-ass again. Look, at the top, look.
I was about to say that.
You're about to see that, aren't you? Every week we have the kick-ass in different forms. Oh, actually, it's great, man. It's like Batman every week here, isn't it? So what they had to do was, so someone mentioned this. You had who was that? Ron P, yes. So the Bank of England was then 1694, a few years after the Glorious Revolution. No, not Alexandra. Was it Alexandra? I'm not thinking of Alexandra. Who's the famous one? Catherine. Oh, came to me. The Catherine wheel and all that, and all the weird things she's supposed to have done is Catherine I was thinking of. Great reformer, by the way. If you look at the famous women in history, she's one of my favourites. She tried to imply more Western ideas and more representation, and tried to ease the burden of the serfs, although not by much. But anyway, she was trying. She's in the right direction. Catherine I was thinking of. I loved studying the Russian tsars and things. What you don't look at is how they took the throne in the first place, okay? You got Batu Khan. I'm going to all that right now. He's the one who established the Golden Horn. And one of the things that Fomenko now points out is the word Khan. All these words come from Russian roots. And Khan and Tsar are synonymous. So these are actually Russians, not Mongolians or Chinese, okay? Another great, we've all been brought up in these fantastic pictures and stories. My hobby used to be wargaming and painting the little soy soldiers and the armies and all that. And I've done loads of these, and I love studying this period and the battles and the fantastic stories. One is always great. There's a series of novels written about the Mongol invasions, which was brilliant. And one of the things they were showing was that they thought Moscow was safe. It was very difficult to access because of the rivers. Then in the winter, the rivers froze, and the Mongols were able to come ride their horses up the rivers and take the Russian army while they were still in their winter quarters. Loads of great stuff like that. Turns out there's not much evidence for any of this. It's sad, isn't it? He spent all that time learning stuff only to find that it was probably made up. But there's stuff like the Tsars. I would think the history seems to be pretty much correct from about the 17th century. But hey, who knows? Like what they say about the Romanovs. I mean, they certainly got killed in 1917, thereabouts. More great pictures. These are curious as well, because you can see medieval type soldiers fighting each other. That's fantastic, isn't it? I love these paintings. Right, so it's all, but what it doesn't do is go back all the way back to Vladimir Monomakh. This is the ancient Russian history. This is part of the history that starts to get written out. Now, the curious thing is, these are the three names. All right, we can't find many pictures of them much. Tatishev, Miller, and Schletzer. And the key that Fomenko's on about is that although Tatishev, his name is used, his work has disappeared. Miller and Schletzer, they're foreign. And this is a key I want to mention here. The Russian history that we have today is largely written by Germans. Not working for the Russian Tsars. And as Fomenko points out here, one of the reasons for doing this would have been they have less of an emotional bond to the history. It doesn't mean anything to them if they write out Russian history because it's not theirs anyway. They just paid as academics to come and give an account. Sorry, I was trying to read. Right, okay, some interesting conversation going on there. Okay, we'll come back to that. And this struck me then as something I want to encourage you to watch again. I've got this ready here. Where is it? All right, we'll talk about him in a second. And that's, if you have a look at, I have watched this, the time bar's not showing. Maybe I'm not right. Yeah, I'm not logged in. That's what it is. This is really good. By Adam Griffiths there. Britain's Trojan origin story. It's time to reopen the whatever. I mean, discuss it. Why is it a forbidden subject? Why is it that Brutus and all this is considered forbidden? It's not just because it'd be untrue or myth, but you're somehow evil or a heretic. I got thrown out of a Facebook group just opened a post about Brutus and trying to track down the Brutus stone. I was told if you want to discuss Brutus, you're not like that. Well, so I'm interested to find out more about the story. Seems to have some basis. Boom, gone. That's what you're up against with the academics, okay? Now, what Adam explains in this video, which I highly recommend, just type in the Great Griff in your search on YouTube, you'll find him. He explains there how Virgil was brought in by the Tudors to start rewriting British history, and that's what he set out to do, and successfully did, and it's got worse and worse since then. So what we have to find then is who the historians who rewrote the British history in the in the sort of 1600s and 1700s. Right, so getting back to our Russian friends, let's go on a couple of quotes here. Right, so we got this. Hang on a sec. Oh yeah. That's what I was going to do. I remember now. Hang on. So we got this chap. Okay. Vladimir II monarch. Yeah, by the way, I'm told it's Vladimir, my Russian friends say, rather than Vladimir. This ties in with Ukraine now as well. Oh, great. Get me in trouble. Right, so he reigned as Grand Prince of the Kievan Rus all the way back to 1113. He's considered a saint in the Eastern Orthodox Church. So what they've done, it's very much like British history. This is what I thought I'd mention it on the show. They kind of have this ancient history, which is sort of accepted, and then what you have then is this massive gap appears in the history, and the official story is that these Mongol hordes came in and ruled the country. It's called the period of the yoke, I think it's called in Russian. Maybe someone can correct me on that. I think it's called the period of the yoke, when the whole of Russia was just under foreign oppression for about 400 years, curiously. Because that's the length of time, of course, Britain's supposed to be under the Roman yoke. So what it says here, now we'll consider the process. So apparently the version of Roman history that began with Vladimir Monomach was created around this time. Hang on. So this whole thing we're looking at here, all this is created around the 16th century. How weird is this, okay? Or even as late as the big rewrites seem to start in the 16th century. Same as with Britain, all the big rewrites, I don't know why yet. Why is it the 16th century was when all the rewrites seem to happen all around the world? And then 17th and 18th century, it really picked up pace. And now we live with it and treat it as fact, okay? So I will read a bit of this, actually. Right, so apparently the version of Russian history that began with Vladimir Monomach was created around this time. We shall consider the process of its creation in the chapters to follow. For the meantime, let's just note that the early Kiev Russia, or Russian history before Vladimir Monomach, appears to have been excluded. So he's the second there. We need to find the first. Oh, here we go. So there's nothing much before him. So the idea is this story's created, we just came down there and found this land. But there was a history before him which has disappeared. Which reminds me a little bit of the ancient British history. And we got, the Brutus stories, all that kind of thing. Right, so we had... so 16th century rewrite. This is followed by a spell of inactivity, ending around the middle of the 17th century, when on the 3rd of November 1657, King Alexei Mikhailovich gave orders to create a special bureau known as the Chronicle Office and appoint a clerk named Kudryavtsev to write, and this is his orders. I meant to put all these slides up, but didn't get that far. Write down the royal orders and ranks, starting with the great king Fyodor Ivanovich. In other words, the clerk was to continue the book of ranks known as the Stepanaya Kniga. Apologies if I'm brutalizing the Russian language, which ended at the reign of Ivan the Terrible. The head of the new bureau was supposed to be assisted by 2 scriveners, those were writers, and 6 minor officials. So what happened? This summarised without going through all of it. They've come into control. The new Romanovs. They've won their civil war. They've won their big battle, and they've given out various orders. Then, and this is why it's useful for us studying British history, so you can see how it was done. We can't see how it was done exactly in British history. We've got a pretty good idea. The monasteries were taken down. All the history was taken from there. Stuff was called into the Tower of London and destroyed. There was people like Scholasticus who went his way to destroy things about early Christianity. But what we have is spelt out in Russia. So what they've done then, they've organised a commission of about 9-10 people. And they are to go around and collect all the previous historical records so that they can continue it. So you've got this book, this record, and they're going to start adding to it with the Romanovs. Now, you follow the tale in here. For the next 2 years, they've just given a complete runaround and came back with nothing, even though it's supposed to be an official inquiry. They didn't find anything. The other thing, well, nothing was produced. Let's got to be careful how you word things when you talk about these things. So what they did instead, they've an appeal was then put out, which is we have to be interesting one, where an appeal was sent to all the churches, all the record keepers throughout the Russian lands, for the documents, all historical documents that they had, and severe penalties for anybody who was found had not submitted their historical records. This was a full purge. The orders is great in this sort of Orwellian doublespeak. They said they're going to make copies and then send the documents back. And of course, whether or not they're going to send back originals or copies, kind of irrelevant because nothing ever seems to have got sent back. So what they managed to do is clear the tables, clear the slates, to get rid of all the old history. The problem you have is you then have a void. Exactly the same problem as had in Britain. When all the British history has been wiped away, when it's all just been put in the bin as being myths and legends, you need to fill it with something. And this just makes my mind spin. Hear what they did with the Russian history and see if how this could have happened or how it seems familiar to British history. So the rulers at the time, who would be the Horde, as they can called here, they had the horsemen, they had all these things. This is how their empire worked. Now, one of the things they used to have to do was to maintain this. They had a taxation system whereby everyone had to pay a tenth to maintain the military class and run the government and make the guy at the top very rich. That was your 10% tax. The horsemen would ride around then, the groups collecting the 10%. This is your Mongol horde. Sometimes regions, because you remember the area we're talking about is so absolutely vast. I mean, let's just put that map back up. 1 second. All this enormous vast area. Well, Fomenko would say it would include China as well. I'm not so sure about that, but that's another discussion for another day. This vast area is being policed from here pretty much, and you can read the book yourself. And I'll put the chapter up, and you can see it. And I'll make if you look online, you can find these books as PDFs, right, or buy them. Okay, they're going to run this area, so they have to have a huge army going around policing it all. Now, the way the tithe worked, what we would call a tithe, 10% of the goods, 10% of the money, and 10% of the male children to keep feeding the army, and they'd never see home again. That's how it was run. So what the Romanovs done, very cleverly, is switch that into an invading force, and they made this into a force, the Mongol hordes that we're taught about to this day. So the Romanov version of history was this great horde swept through, and they kept the Russian people under a yoke, and it was them that were going around terrorizing people and taking all their money and taking their children, this kind of thing. Whereas what Fomenko shows very, very well, I would suggest, is that was actually the legitimate government that was doing that before they'd taken over. Now, that, of course, gives you immediately, in my mind, not immediately, actually, after a couple of days mulling it over, suddenly thought, hang on a second, isn't that what we have with our good friends, the Romans? Isn't that what's happened here? So if you look at them, if you ever read these books, which I highly recommend, I don't sell them or anything, I just think they're good books. Anyway, so here's the, if you go to the PDF, you'll find all this. So you got the edict of how it happened. The introduction's very good, explains the two types of history. I was going to do a bit more about that, it's already 9:45. So this is the bit I just read you from. This is the interesting thing here now. I'm just going to summarise a bit of it there. Come on. Keeps jumping to the next page. Right, so after 16 months, he couldn't find anything. Right, to the obvious conclusions, right? First of all, remember he's trying to find the history. The first records of royal orders to begin the writing of historical chronicles date to the middle of the 17th century, the reign of Alexei Mikhailovich Romanov. It's when the Romanovs start taking over. 2. The persons responsible for the fulfillment of this order didn't manage to find any records covering so much as the last century of Russian history. They couldn't even find the recent history, never mind going back. That's number 3. The disappearance of the famous book of ranks is very odd indeed. And later on they find what they think are parts of that book. This was their ancient chronicle and all the history in it. Gone. What it seems to be, even Fomenko doesn't... Alright, let's just get to number 1. Number 4, the working conditions created for this first historiographical commission mysteriously failed to correspond with the states of the latter. I.e., they set them up as being this royal commission and they got treated rubbish, like peasants. The royal edict was de facto sabotaged. I think, bizarrely and unusually for Fomenko, I would suggest he'd be a little bit naive here. I think obviously he's just being ironic and putting a humour. I'd love to get in touch with him. Apparently he's still alive and I'd like to get hold of him. Wouldn't it be great to do an interview of Fomenko? I know some Russian speakers as well. Ooh, that'd be cool. Could have a translator. Anyway, but it seems you have to set up this commission. If you think of yourselves as the new rulers, you need to send people out there to find all the history to make damn sure you've got it all and you can destroy it all. This is the key. You've got to go through every nook and cranny and find it all. You don't want any traces. You have to assume something like this happened with British history as well. So you got so all the history that we're now reading is written post 1650s. Post 1650s. And you'd argue, now this is the interesting bit here. Now we got Miller. This is what I want to go on to. Right, so you can talk about Miller. I can't highlight things on this. It's quite annoying. Now, the other one is, if you remember, we had 3 writers of history. We got Tatishev, who was Russian. Now, he seems to have been used to find out all he can about the history. He's done a fairly honest job about it. But what he wrote is totally unacceptable. He's written about this previous empire and this royal family and how the Romanovs have come to take power. All these things he's written about. Can't have that. Miller's the one who's done most of the history. And then the chap with the German name. So we've got these guys that come along later. Karamzin, Solovyov and Kluchevsky. They are just copying the history. And this is the key. This is the key that they come onto on this. I'm getting around it a bit. Hang on. Miller was the first to have published. Here we go. I got to scroll up and down. So he's the first Russian historian, effectively. It is very odd that Miller should bring historical documents from Siberia. So they couldn't find anything in Moscow and all the big cities. Nothing at all. Nothing available. But hey, look what I found. I found this. This reminds me very much then of when we're looking at the Roman documents, the ancient Roman documents. None of them were found in Rome or Venice or Florence. There was these academics would suddenly say, I've found a document up in some castle up in the north of Germany, or I've got to go to Sweden for it, and I've made a copy. Oh, I didn't bring the original, but I made a copy. It's the same MO. You have to find documents in obscure places, you bring them back, and that becomes your history. So not even the documents themselves, but rather handwritten copies he'd made himself. This is how it's done. Does that mean he could find no chronicles anywhere in Moscow or St. Petersburg, or indeed Central Russia in general? Isn't this a replay of the scenario with the edict of Alexei Mikhailovich? when its own clerk could find no historical sources anywhere in the capital. 3, starting with Miller and onwards, the consensual version, this is the word, I use that, the consensual version of Russian history has remained virtually immutable. You can't even discuss it. Therefore, later renditions done by all these historians are of little interest as they're just copying. And this seems to be the same thing that happened here. So the consensual version of ancient Russian history was created in the middle of the 18th century, they say here, as they claim, and based on sources that were either written or edited in the late 17th and early 18th centuries. Apparently, the time between the end of the 17th century and the middle of the 18th century is the very epoch when a modern version of Russian history was created. In other words, Russian history in its present form came to existence in the epoch of Peter the Great, Anna Yonovna and Yelizaveta Petrovna, after the publication of Karamzin's history. This version became widely known. It eventually became introduced into the school course of history. Our analysis demonstrates the version of Russian history to be erroneous. See more about this in the following chapters. And you can read all about that, if you want to go into it, come towards the end of the show today, 10 to 10. But take it from me, I've read those first couple of chapters in great detail now, because I wasn't interested in the Russian history when I read Fomenko. I was more interested in what he said about how chronology was shaped and how Scaliger was set up chronology and the mathematical approach they used on it, because Fomenko is not the original discover a lot of this, and I'm not trying to aggrandize myself here anyway, but a lot of the ideas and the brains of it came from an earlier writer, Wazorov, I think his name is. I probably got mutilated that. And what Fomenko did was take all the work and then process it into books and supply the rigorous analysis that came after it. And of course, this could only happen once you get into the Soviet era. You couldn't do this when the Romanovs were still in charge, because it would be it just wouldn't be allowed. It would never get out, even if you did do the work. So let's hope things aren't as bad under our Saxe-Coburg-Goethe royal family, and you don't get the same kind of problems in there. So I've just had to give a taste of that because, the Fomenko books are this big, and there's at least 7 of them, and there's more research, and it's massive, and I'm sure there's other channels out there about it. But what I wanted to cover was the bits I have covered, was the amazing parallels. I wish I could spend hours talking about this, but can't go on forever. But the amazing parallels whereby the previous rulers have been projected as being foreign invaders. All right, this is the key, because that strikes me. Fomenko would never write about this stuff, but that strikes me as an exact parallel with the previous British rulers being repainted as Romans. As Wilson and Blackett came from a completely different direction, you can trace it. And there's one other thing I want to say on this from the introduction of book 4. Hang on a second. I'll just put this on the screen so you get an idea what they look like and stuff. There's Jesus on a clock. He actually moves the crucifixion to about 1000 AD. That's going to blow people's brains. It's too much to take in. And I'm not particularly, going with everything, but there we are. It's an interesting thing. What I want to do is just give the introduction. I did have it printed out. This is what the books look like. You can see these massive subjects they cover. You can go through all the Russian history and all that if you're more interested in that kind of thing. There's other histories. In this book 4, they go into British history, which maybe I'll discuss another time. But what I would say is it's a little bit disappointing. Maybe I'll see a brief scheme in English history, because a lot of the things he says here are nonsense and everything. Yeah, I'd agree. Yeah, of course they're nonsense. Wilson and Blackett have done much better than you to show most of this. If they'd read Wilson and Blackett, they would have already known. So you've got a discussion of Nennius, you've got a discussion of Galfridus Momentus, Historia Britannia, so old Gerald. Oh, Geoffrey. Right, all this kind of stuff. So hey, we'll do that another time. Because what they do with English history is quite interesting, actually. So it gives you an idea of these huge, huge books. Wow, look at the size of this. Come on. We'll get the introduction. And each book will cover different major topics, all right? Come on. Right, where's the book? Is it? You see all about chronology and everything. It's the prologue here. Come on. My little...
You can use the little thing on the side.
What can I do? Right, here we go.
It's quicker.
What thing on the side? What do you mean?
On the side of the screen. Look.
Oh, yeah, but this is like 750 pages. That's the problem. It zoops.
There's a lot of arrows on it.
So, in classic fashion of my program, we get the music ready. I'm going to finish a couple of minutes. That do the introduction last. So I think they put this really, really well. All right, so I'm just going to read this out now. For you to people need to disappear. This is fine. Right, so we must warn the reader. It makes a good summary, I think, although it's at the beginning of the book. We must warn the reader that the ancient and medieval history known to us today, including that of Russia, is the furthest thing from obvious and self-implied. It's extremely vague and convoluted. In general, history of the epochs that predate the 15th to 16th century and the invention of the printing press is anything but accounts of real events based on and implied by ancient authentic documents. On the contrary, historical events that predate the 16th to 17th century in their consensual version came into existence courtesy of historians and chronologists, several generations of those in fact. They all attempted to reconstruct the events of the past. However, the resulting picture is hardly indubitable. Great word, I'm not sure what it means. I think it means you can't argue with it. And yet most of us are certain that reconstruction of past events is rather easy in principle, believing that it suffices to take a chronicle and translate it into the modern language. The only complications that may arise presumably concern details of minor importance and little else. This is what the school course of history makes us assume. Sadly, this is not the case. Point 2. I love this. History known to us nowadays is written history, based on written documents, in other words. All of them have been edited, revised, recompiled, etc. for a very long time. Some of the things are written in stone. This is the massive advantage we have with British history. We've got the ancient stones. So people wonder why I keep going on about stones all the time. Even here, look, because some things are written in stone. Very ancient stones. And you won't find an ancient stone in Rome with the same stories you get in South Wales, for example. Anyway, these morsels of information, they're more than morsels. We got great big banquets of them. Only begin to make sense after the entire edifice of chronology is already constructed. Yes, it's getting the chronology right is important. If we're going to climb up and down a ladder of dates, we've got to get the rungs of the ladder in the right places. There's a little bit more to go. I'm not going to read the whole thing. So when we say that Brutus killed Caesar with a sword, the only thing it means is that some written source that managed to reach our time says so, and nothing but. The issue of just how faithfully documented history reflects real events is very complex and requires a special study. It's what we're doing. It's really a problem posed by the philosophy of history rather than documented history per se. And then we got on to what we did tonight, so it's a bit backwards in some ways, you could argue. Anyway, there we go. I think that's enough for anyone's brain for one night. A little bit different. And say with school starting again and the weather not so easy to go yomping around the hills. You can start playing out on flight now. What are you going to play, Arnie? So you got something jolly in mind. You're tapping your foot there.
I'm just trying to learn one of these pieces now.
Oh, you're just learning a piece.
They're not that.
You see, Arnie's even worse than me for advanced preparation rehearsal there, you know. Arnie's got a new piece. He's just reading it off the book, so you're going to perform it live in a few seconds. Great. Here we go. Right, we got any more chat? I'm a bit more like myself. Hang on a second. Let's have a look here. The thing with the foreign... Yeah, again, like I say, with that Watch Adam's channel, because it seems the Tudors did a similar thing when they got foreign historians in. And, of course, in that case, you've got a foreign historian coming in from the Roman Church. So he's going to completely get rid of the Christian bit and put the Roman Church spin on everything. And I got a little bit back on the comments, not too far. Wow, some great comments. Right, okay. Capalicious. Okay. Gary Taylor, maybe not so hard to implement when so few could read and write. Yeah, good point. Yeah. Like Fomenko says, before you got the printing press, I mean, there's not that many documents around anyway, really. If they all need hand copying. And that's when the church got its control, isn't it? Because they're the only ones who could do the copying. Robert Cecil did a good job in his brother-in-law. Thank you, Ian Briggs. Yes, Robert Cecil, absolutely crucial character in all this. He was the original sort of... what was he called? The spy master and everything for going back to Elizabethan times.
Okay, I've got something ready now.
Oh, you got something ready? Good. Squirrel Sniper, I think the printing press is very controlled from the first moment they're produced. Absolutely. In Britain, for example, I think Alan Wilson has... dare I say it? Mr. Wilson, I apologise. Bob Morgan did the research on this. Alan Wilson often quotes this idea that as soon as a printing press came to... officially, anyway, came to Britain, William Caxton, I think it's 1492... And Alan says almost immediately a law was passed banning printing in Welsh. Now, Bob has spent a lot of time, and I've done a little bit, as Bob's done the work, going through the parliamentary records and everything. He can't find any bill or law or anything expressly forbidding Welsh. But what they did pass, ties in with what Squirrel was saying there, is that all printing had to be done only at certain locations, such as London, and there was lots and lots of conditions. So, might not be expressly mentioned, implicitly. It's implicitly mentioned because there's no way, as he says, it was completely controlled from the very beginning. And people would set up illegal printing sites and stuff like that. And another topic we're going to get into, I mean, there's just so much to do in this. It's so much material, we can't get through it all. Bob has tracked down, there were some semi-legal, or I hope they can crackle or something, printing presses set up in Wales where stuff was produced under duress and people were executed and stuff for doing it. So, people saying hello. The 2 types of history would be a good starting point for a BHH Sunday night time online. Yeah. Carrie Taylor, good point. Marcel, yes. The rest of us took it for granted, didn't ask questions. Now we're all trying to grab it back. Yeah, I never questioned any of this stuff. I had a real shock. I loved history. Well, I still love history, but... all right. You can just play away now if you want, Arnie, in the background. It's okay. Yeah, Russian history is another taboo subject. Capalicious. Hey, Akhmasei, my favourite name. Akhmasei... Prana Lauren, any Jews writing and editing the great works? Do you mean Wilson of Black's stuff? Yes, all coming out soon. Pushkin. Hey, Pushkin Castle. Brilliant. Great name. I don't think history deception is that complex to manifest. No, it's just a huge bloody mess. Well, I don't know about just incompetence. I think it's done deliberately. The thing is, once it's in the books and everyone learns from the books, people say, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. Well, you don't need much of a conspiracy. You know, I was quite happy to repeat the mainstream history until a few years ago. I'm sure all of us will, won't we? We learnt it at school. Some people learn to question younger than others, but you don't need a conspiracy because most people just believe what they see on the telly and what they read in books. And the people writing the books believe what they read. That's really nice, Hon. That's lovely, Hon. What was that?
Tom Jones. I don't think it was,
Tom Jones.
I don't think it was written by him.
Yeah, that's not unusual, Hon. So you won't get... Yeah, he does get the joke. There we go. Ah, hey. Oh, brilliant. Capalicious. Peter the Great was replaced when on his European voyage and replaced, I assume he was replaced by a Dutch Freemason rather than he was on a voyage with a Freemason? I don't know. The guy that came back didn't speak Russian, put his wife in a monastery and banished Peter's friends. Brilliant. Yeah, there they are. I think all the people on here know the game, don't they? George Bodley. Interesting that Russian history erased, a bit like history of the Britons redacted with altered. But who has the Hanoverians links with? Yes, good question. Mountbatten has never had the same ring to it since we woke up. Yes, Battenberg. Battenberg is a proper name for it, isn't it? They anglicised all their names in World War One. Battenberg, good cake. Right, Suzanne Price. We are living through the end of the current ascension cycle and coming out the Dark Age into the light, Age of Enlightenment, the Golden Age. It does feel like that, it certainly does. And astronomically, that's certainly true. The Red Dragon is one of them. Trick question. The capital... Oh, Capalicious, are you Russian? Okay, it's been moved to...
Duh, Cumberland.
Plenty. Andy has a very good Russian accent, much better than mine. Yeah, the capital's moved around. The cities have changed their names every few years, haven't they? It's a difficult history. Right, Marcel. George I was the great-grandson of James VI and First. The Hanoverians' main virtue was their Protestantism, anything to keep the Vatican's nose out of our affairs. That's one way of looking at it. I think just quite apt to let the city run the country while they have a nice palace and plenty of food. All right, Suzanne Price. Since Charlie and William have Arthur in their names, this must tell us how important King Arthur, once and future king, was. Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it? If Arthur's such a myth and load of nonsense, why the royals keep using his name? And why were kings like Edward I and kings like that so keen to get his stuff and call themselves, descendants of Arthur? And I think was it Henry VII or VIII who built the Round Table in Winchester and all that? They loved the Arthur stories, so... Marcel again, I think so. That's Tsarina of all the Russias. George V tried very hard to save them. But their fate was sealed by the money people. Yes, I agree with that. I think it was a lesson to the other royal families. Look what happened. Look what we did to the Russian royals. We shot them all. Now, you're sure you want to cause problems? There's extortion, isn't it? Oh, Oliver Bent, you've missed the live event. I've just got home. I'll be watching from the start once I made a cup of tea. Well, there we are. When you get to this point, you'll see me saying hello to you. You're about 2 hours behind us. Capalicious, yes, I'm both Russian and Ukrainian. Oh, God, I'm lucky at the moment. Born in Russia, moved to Amsterdam. Been going back every year. Well, I hope everything's going well for you there. Yes, deliberately incompetent. Oh, I thought you said Ross is deliberately incompetent. No, I it just happens naturally. It's a talent of mine. I don't need to try to be incompetent. Yeah, Henry Tudor's first son was Arthur. He's another Arthur, wasn't he? Yeah, instead of Henry VIII. Thank you, David, that Hewell. What's your thoughts on the stone Jacob's pillow? Do you think the Queen had a false coronation? Oh, there's loads of stories about that. There's loads of Scottish people saying that the stone of scone, isn't it? Jacob's pillow was already substituted. The Queen was coronated on a assistant cover or something, isn't it? Anyway, I don't know enough about that one, I'm afraid. I always say I report from the books rather than know all these things. There you go. Go and play it again. I like that little tune. A bit of Tom Jones. I want to say goodnight to everyone. I'm going to close things down now. I can't reach the... I quite like that. Or maybe I should sing. I haven't sung for ages. I haven't seen any requests for me to sing, so I sort of didn't bother in the end. This is called, touting. What's the word? Fishing. Right, so good night to everyone. My goodness, 2 hours. I can't believe it. I was so determined to be a shorter show tonight. But I'm quite enjoying it. Some Scottish separatists sold it. Yeah, that's the idea, isn't it? And when they got caught and they gave the stone back, it wasn't the real stone. Who knows? Yay! Very good. Right, Arnie B.
Yep.
Without smashing the camera through the window, please. Can we gently, look out. Don't ask teenage rugby boys to do something gently or carefully, eh? Look at his face,
Ready.
he gets so excited. I got to get the button ready. Right, so I'm going to say goodnight to everyone. I will leave the comments on a few minutes, just so everyone to say goodnight to each other. Look out, that big Arnie fist is coming your way.
Ready.
Yeah, do it so people actually see it coming towards the camera. And it's going to be wasted, otherwise you can see that great big Arnie haymaker coming. Oh, you turned it on yourself. Look out.
Ready.
That's what opposition props get to see facing them. Yeah, go on in, do it again. All right, then. No star, Poe. Love you all. I'm going to say Hedvuk. A weird way of saying Hedvuk with a fist in your face. Go on. No start.
See that. Yay.
Very good.